Harrisville ruins, the rise, glory, and destruction of a pine barrens industrial kingdom. Prologue, a ghost hidden in the pines. Deep within the vast wilderness of southern New Jersey lies a place where nature and history are locked in a century-long battle. Travel down the sandy roads of the Pine Barrens, past endless forests of pitch pine and cedar swamps, and eventually the trees begin to open. A lake appears. Beyond it stand crumbling walls of brick and stone, their surfaces covered in moss and lichen. What remains looks less like a town and more like the ruins of an ancient civilization. This is Harrisville. Today, it is one of the most famous ghost towns in New Jersey. Hikers, photographers, historians, and explorers visit the site every year. Most visitors spend only a few minutes looking at the ruins before moving on. Yet few realize they are standing in what was once one of the largest industrial communities in the Pine Barrens. For nearly 2 centuries, Harrisville was a place of ambition, innovation, hard labor, tragedy, and survival. Thousands of people passed through the village. Millions of sheets of paper were manufactured there. Massive water-powered machines operated day and night. The story of Harrisville is not simply the story of a ghost town. It is the story of the rise and fall of an entire way of life. Chapter 1: Before the Town. To understand Harrisville, one must first understand the Pine Barrens. Covering over 1 million acres of southern New Jersey, the Pine Barrens were unlike any other region on the East Coast. Early settlers often described the landscape as both beautiful and hostile. The soil was sandy and poor for farming. The forests were dense. Roads were scarce. Travel was difficult. Yet hidden beneath the wilderness were valuable resources. The forests contained vast amounts of timber. The rivers provided water power. Bog iron deposits supplied raw material for industry. Cedar trees provided durable lumber. Because of these resources, industrial settlements began appearing throughout the region during the 18th century. Batstow, Atchison, Martha Furnace, Weymouth, Harrisville. Each existed because entrepreneurs saw opportunity where others saw wilderness. The future Harrisville site sat beside the Oswego River, one of the Pine Barrens' most important waterways. The river flowed steadily through a narrow section of forest. Its power could be harnessed. Its water could be controlled. Its location made industrial development possible. Long before Harrisville existed, the river was already shaping its destiny. Chapter 2: The First Mills. The earliest industrial operations at the site appeared around the middle of the 18th century. At this time, New Jersey remained a British colony. America did not yet exist. The Pine Barrens were still largely unexplored wilderness. Early settlers constructed a sawmill and gristmill along the Oswego River. The sawmill converted logs into lumber. The gristmill ground grain into flour. These mills represented the first major human alteration of the landscape. Workers cut down trees. Dams were built. Channels were dug. Water was redirected. For the first time, the power of the Oswego River was being controlled by humans. The mills became gathering places for scattered settlers. Farmers brought grain. Lumbermen delivered logs. Merchants arrived with supplies. Slowly, a small community began developing around the water-powered operations. Nobody could have imagined that this modest settlement would eventually become one of the most important industrial villages in the Pine Barrens. Chapter 3: The Iron Years. By the late 18th century, the Pine Barrens had become one of America's major iron-producing regions. Iron was essential. Every colony needed it. Blacksmiths needed iron. Builders needed iron. Armies needed iron. Factories needed iron. The demand seemed endless. In 1795, industrialist Isaac Potts expanded operations at the site. A slitting mill was constructed. This specialized facility processed iron into narrow strips used to manufacture nails and other products. The operation relied heavily on water power. Massive water wheels turned machinery. Wooden gears transferred energy. Heavy iron components clanged and rattled throughout the day. Imagine standing near the mill in 1800. The sounds would have been overwhelming. The roar of rushing water. The creaking of wooden gears. The pounding of machinery. The shouts of workers. The smell of smoke and hot metal. At night, the glow of furnaces illuminated the surrounding forest. For miles around, the wilderness was punctuated by the sights and sounds of industry. Yet the iron industry faced growing challenges. Transportation remained difficult. Competition increased. Many Pine Barrens iron operations struggled financially. Eventually, owners began searching for a different path forward. Chapter 4: The Revolutionary Idea of Paper. The answer arrived in the form of paper. During the early 19th century, America experienced explosive growth. Newspapers expanded. Books became more common. Businesses generated mountains of records. Schools required textbooks. Government agencies needed documents. Paper consumption soared. Entrepreneur William McCarty recognized the opportunity. Around the 1830s, he acquired the property and transformed it into a paper manufacturing center. This decision would forever change the history of the site. The village became known as McCartyville. Construction crews built a large paper mill. Unlike many earlier Pine Barrens industries, paper manufacturing required specialized knowledge and equipment. The facility included pulp processing rooms, water wheel chambers, machine rooms, drying lofts, storage areas, warehouses, worker facilities. The complex quickly became one of the largest industrial structures in the region. Its towering brick walls dominated the landscape. For travelers approaching through the forest, the mill must have seemed almost unbelievable. A giant factory standing in the middle of the wilderness. Chapter 5: Inside the Great Paper Mill. The paper mill was the beating heart of Harrisville. Every day began before sunrise. Workers arrived while darkness still covered the village. The machinery rarely stopped. Inside, the process was incredibly complex. Raw materials were delivered to the mill. These materials included rags, plant fibers, and local marsh grasses. Workers sorted and cleaned the materials. They were then processed into pulp. The pulp passed through machines that transformed it into sheets of paper. The sheets were pressed, dried, cut, and packaged. Every stage required labor. The mill employed men, women, and children. Many jobs were physically demanding. Workers stood for long hours. Temperatures fluctuated dramatically. The noise was constant. Safety standards were almost non-existent. Industrial accidents were common throughout 19th century America. Despite these hardships, mill employment provided something valuable: steady income. For Pine Barrens residents, that was often difficult to find. Chapter 6: The Village Around the Factory. A factory alone does not create a town. People do. As the paper business expanded, Harrisville grew into a complete industrial community. Company houses lined dirt roads. Families established roots. Children were born and raised in the village. A school educated local students. A company store supplied necessities. A post office connected residents to the outside world. Blacksmiths repaired equipment. Carpenters maintained buildings. Teamsters transported goods. The town functioned as a self-contained world. Many residents rarely traveled beyond neighboring communities. Their lives revolved around the mill. The whistle determined when they woke up. The whistle determined when they worked. The whistle determined when they rested. In many ways, Harrisville was a classic 19th century company town. The mill wasn't merely part of life. The mill was life. Chapter 7: Fire and Rebirth. Industrial fires were terrifying. Paper mills were especially vulnerable. Dust, wood, oil, open flames, hot machinery. Together they created constant danger. In 1846, disaster struck. Fire swept through the mill. Flames spread rapidly. Workers fought desperately to save the facility. The blaze caused extensive damage. For many communities, such a catastrophe would have meant permanent closure. But Harrisville refused to die. Owners rebuilt. Workers returned. Machinery was repaired. Production resumed. The town survived. The rebuilding effort demonstrated both the importance of the mill and the determination of its owners. Harrisville had suffered its first major catastrophe. It would not be the last. Chapter 8: The Harris Family and the Golden Age. The arrival of the Harris family transformed the village. In the mid-1850s, the family acquired the property and renamed it Harrisville. Under their leadership, the community entered its most prosperous era. New investments modernized operations. Buildings were improved. Housing expanded. Production increased. The Harris family viewed the town not merely as a business, but as an industrial enterprise capable of long-term growth. By the 1860s and 1870s, Harrisville had become one of the most successful paper-producing communities in southern New Jersey. The village buzzed with activity. Wagons entered daily. Supplies arrived constantly. Paper shipments departed regularly. Workers filled the streets. Smoke rose from chimneys. Machinery operated continuously. The community appeared stable, prosperous, permanent. History would prove otherwise. Chapter 9: A surprisingly modern town. One of the most remarkable aspects of Harrisville was how advanced it became. Many Pine Barrens settlements remained isolated and technologically behind major cities. Harrisville was different. The Harris family introduced gas lighting. This was an extraordinary achievement for such a remote location. Underground pipes distributed gas throughout portions of the settlement. Lights illuminated areas after dark. Visitors often viewed the system as evidence of the town's sophistication. The community also benefited from organized industrial planning. Buildings served specific purposes. Roads connected important locations. Water systems supported manufacturing. For a village hidden deep within the pines, Harrisville represented modern industrial progress. The town had become a small island of technology surrounded by wilderness. Chapter 10: The Beginning of the End. No industrial empire lasts forever. By the late 19th century, Harrisville faced growing competition. America's industrial landscape was changing. Railroads connected major cities. Factories grew larger. Machinery became more efficient. Companies consolidated. Unfortunately, Harrisville possessed a major weakness. It lacked direct railroad access. Every shipment required transportation by wagon. This dramatically increased costs. Competing paper mills near rail lines could move goods faster and cheaper. The economic advantage was overwhelming. Profits declined. Debt increased. Investment slowed. Workers left in search of better opportunities. The village entered a long period of decline. The collapse was gradual. Year after year, activity decreased. The town that had once seemed unstoppable slowly faded. Chapter 11: Joseph Wharton and the Last Hope. In 1896, ownership passed to the wealthy industrialist and philanthropist Joseph Wharton. Wharton controlled enormous areas of Pine Barrens land. He believed the region's water resources held tremendous potential. His plans included forestry projects, agricultural development, and water management initiatives. For a brief moment, Harrisville appeared to have another chance. But the paper industry was gone. The town's economic foundation had already collapsed. Wharton could preserve the property. He could manage the land. He could maintain certain structures. But he could not restore the industrial world that had disappeared. The village remained alive only in a diminished form. Its glory days were over. Chapter 12: The Great Fire of 1914. Then came the final catastrophe. In 1914, one of the Pine Barrens' devastating forest fires swept through the area. Dry conditions created ideal circumstances for disaster. Flames raced through the woods. Trees exploded into fire. Smoke darkened the sky. The abandoned and partially vacant structures of Harrisville stood directly in the fire's path. The blaze consumed what remained. Wooden roofs collapsed. Floors burned away. Homes vanished. Outbuildings disappeared. Only the strongest brick and stone structures survived. When the fire ended, Harrisville was no longer a town. It was a ruin. A skeleton. A memory. The destruction was so complete that rebuilding was never seriously attempted. The community ceased to exist. Chapter 13: Nature takes back the town. After 1914, the forest began its slow conquest. Seeds landed in abandoned foundations. Trees grew through walls. Roots cracked stone. Moss spread across bricks. Year after year, nature advanced. Unlike dramatic disasters that erase places overnight, the disappearance of Harrisville occurred gradually. The Pine Barrens reclaimed the town 1 inch at a time. Visitors arriving decades later discovered something remarkable. Instead of a cleared industrial site, they found ruins emerging from the forest itself. The village appeared to be dissolving into the landscape. Human history and natural history had become inseparable. Chapter 14: Exploring the ruins today. Modern visitors can still identify many important features. The paper mill walls. The most impressive remains at Harrisville. These towering brick walls once enclosed the main manufacturing areas of the mill. Stone foundations. Scattered throughout the site are foundations marking the locations of homes, workshops, and support buildings. The dam. The dam remains one of the most important structures because it powered the entire industrial operation. Without it, Harrisville would never have existed. Mill race channels. Some water control features remain visible. These channels directed water toward machinery. Harrisville Lake. The lake survives as one of the most recognizable features of the site. It reflects both the ruins and surrounding forest, creating one of the most photographed scenes in the Pine Barrens. Road traces. Careful observers can still identify portions of the original road network that once connected different sections of the village. Every stone and foundation tells part of the story. Epilogue: the lost capital of the Pines. Today, Harrisville stands as one of the finest surviving industrial ruins in New Jersey. Unlike restored historic villages, Harrisville remains largely untouched. Visitors see history in its rawest form. Not reconstructed. Not recreated. Not modernized. Just preserved by accident and time. The broken walls that stand beside Harrisville Lake are more than ruins. They are the remains of generations of workers, families, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and laborers who carved an industrial community out of one of the most isolated landscapes on the East Coast. For nearly 150 years, the town fought against economic collapse, fire, distance, and changing technology. In the end, none of those forces defeated Harrisville as completely as time itself. The factory whistles are silent. The workers are gone. The houses have vanished. But the ruins remain, standing quietly among the pines, guarding the story of a forgotten kingdom in the heart of the New Jersey wilderness.